All right, thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were speaking with regards to the new Minister for Finance and coordinating the economy, talking about Wale Edun, the task ahead of him. And we still have our guest in the studio, a professor of economics, former CBN staff, former commissioner for finance, Edo State, Professor Emmanuel Balogun, schooling us on the monetary policies as well as the fiscal policies, how it is that one cannot divorce the other from the other. And Ibrahim wanted to ask a question before we went on the break.
Yeah, absolutely. So you actually referred to the fact that, he's got a lot of tasks, right in front of him. But we understand that the fortunes of key ministries, such as petroleum, power, transport, and agriculture are heavily interwoven. So what do you think it needs to, first and foremost, put in, ahead of him to ensure that he's able to coordinate these ministries, to achieve the integration in economic policy?
Thank you. Some of these key subsectors, the way government, the fiscal policy influences it, is that the government, the tools, the basic tools available is you can use transfer to create incentives in those, you can use taxes to create the kind of incentives you want in those sectors, or you can also use subsidy.
Subsidy again?
Listen. Now, when we say taxes,
right?
How, Minister of Finance, how do you support a sector? You can only support a sector through tax incentives.
Okay.
And tax incentive, a negative tax incentive, is a subsidy. The implication of that is that whereas a proper tax incentive like the newly appointed the guy in charge of tax mobilization.
Okay, the presidential committee.
The presidential committee.
Yes.
Now, the beauty of it is that you raise tax from the people, and tax is an inflow to government. And why it's directly related to subsidy is that whereas this government will mobilize taxes from the economy, it becomes subsidy when this time around it is not the public that is paying government taxes. It is the government that is paying, in quotes, paying out. And that's the meaning of the subsidy. In other words, you use what you have already earned from your general tax system, you now use it to supplement some sectors. And I approach it from this perspective because often we implement tax incentives that ends up with the unintended beneficiaries. We call it unintended beneficiaries. In fact, like the subsidy you talked about, the real intention is that, if we provide petroleum subsidy, transportation costs will be cheap, and prices will...
For the benefit of the generality.
But for the benefit of the generality of the people.
Yeah.
That's secondary. The immediate impact of that subsidy is that if it's an import subsidy, which it is, people often say it's a petroleum subsidy. It's not petroleum subsidy. It's a foreign exchange subsidy. In other words, you are saying that, okay, we want to subsidize the consumption, pump price of petrol locally, then you give import licenses to an importer. and you tell the importer, look, it doesn't matter how much it lands on in Nigeria. That assume if it lands at 300 naira CIF or whatever, or free OB, you now said, okay, please sell it at the pump at 150. So sometimes mistakenly, you, the consumer, believes you are the one being subsidized. But come to me to come and collect the balance, 150. And that's what happened. So that's why we often say that a subsidy is a negative tax.
Okay.
And taxes and subsidies are transfers. Whereas tax is transfer from individual, household, companies to government. The subsidy is transfer from government to the people.
All right.
So this is, and therefore it becomes a challenge for the coordinating minister, because you need to balance all this. If you create subsidy that is essentially prepared and driven by the foreign exchange market, because the real subsidy is not petrol subsidy, it's foreign exchange market subsidy. You already have crisis in that. And then it also has implication for the fiscal authority. Now, the relationship between this and the fiscal balance is that, like the Nigerian experience, most of the time, the federation account, when you go for distributable pool account, in most cases, the petroleum profit tax, which is already part of foreign reserve, which accrued to the central government. Government will say, I want to monitor, government will say, look, we don't have money, but we have $33 billion reserve. This month, can we not take $3 billion to convert to naira? And that's what you see every now and then that is being shared on a monthly basis. Now, it's not as easy as that. When you come to the federation account, which is now the domain of the public treasury, now, treasury has a deep role to balance.
Okay.
To balance the exchange rates. The reason is that each time the exchange rate devalues, it translates into more revenue to the benefiting concern. And remember that this is federation account money. And so it simply translates into more money. In the meantime, it translates into very difficult economic situation for the household and the business sector.
Right, right. Now, because of time, so that we can maximize the time we have left, I am wondering how, because there's also the issue of unemployment, there's also the issue of our debt burden and all of it, how the coordinating minister has to address these issues moving forward. These are critical issues. What are the low-hanging fruits you feel he can hit the ground running with regards to the matter of our economy and the specific issues of unemployment as well as our debt burden?
Right. For unemployment, it's a critical, and he is really facing some challenges there. And again, it's a fallout of our industrialization strategy. Now, most often, people believed, and even most of the people that are helping to do the groundwork, they believe that you need to spur the private sector, organized private sector, and multinationals and the rest of them to engage and probably bring in modern means of production so that we can attain rapid growth. The problem is, when you do that, we have an economy that is dual in nature. Dual economy. You have one small segment that is dominated by multinationals and large corporations. Okay? And then you have 60 to 70% MSMEs. Now, the products these MSMEs produce and agric produce, they are also the same product
that the big corporations.
The big corporations. Yeah. So, whereas there are all policy incentives for this group, there is none for the MSMEs. And you even try as much as possible to supplant their methods, instead of at least doing something to improve their productive capacity. The reason I say so is that every incentive given to big companies and multinationals, you are trying to suppress your domestic economy. And you look at it, in almost all spheres of life, we are a cocoa producer.
Right.
Do you have Nigeria-made cocoa product? You don't have. What do you, even toothpick, at least we have capacity to harvest broom and cut them into this thing.
Bamboo sticks.
Bamboo
sticks.
But turn them to brooms.
Yeah. Oh, bamboo sticks. I'm thinking maybe bamboo sticks we get toothpick from.
Just name it.
We have a fertile land to.
We have fertile. Okay, water. When indigenous people came and they started packaging this pure water.
Sachet water.
And people will say, "Oh, do you know what the multinationals did? They came in big form, and you now have
and
have different bottled waters.
Yes.
You have different bottled waters, and that's it. I can name. So it becomes a wrong narrative. In economics, we will say that if you want to promote growth, you will do so exploiting your factor endowments.
Right.
And we have labor in abundance. And therefore, the kind of strategies we should have been promoting, I'm not saying that we cannot borrow and modernize, but it should be one that will help to improve the huge labor resources. And that way, for instance, they have a big dilemma now. The dilemma they have is, okay, how do you help, how do you intervene in the system? And then somebody is talking of, what do they call it, this welfare, 500 million.
Palliatives.
Palliative.
5 billion to every state.
But if indeed we have structured our economy in such a way that carpenters, people,
Artisans,
others, those who process gari, raw, and they were actually included,
Right.
they would have benefited and would have been seen to benefit from the arrangement.
All right. Yeah, Prof, there's so much to be said,
Okay.
but time is not our friend at this point. We need to wrap up the conversation here now.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor Emmanuel Balogun, Professor of Economics, former CBN staff, former Commissioner for Finance, Edo State, for your time on the program. Thank you. All right, still ahead on TVC Breakfast.